Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads@xzoneradiotv.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
You doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces, like you always do. And you don't mean to be cruel, you never even knew about the heartache I've been going through. Well, I tried to forget you, girl, but it's just so hard to do. Every time you do that thing you do.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm going to be your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And we're here with you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, then from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m., and then once again, before the day starts, all over again from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Hugh Newman. And Hugh is an Earth Mysteries researcher and travels the world in search of megaliths, lost civilizations, and ancient knowledge. And his website is megalithomania.co.uk /HughNewman.html. That's megalithomania.co.uk Hugh Newman .html. And joining me now from the United Kingdom via Skype is Hugh Newman. And Hugh, welcome to the X Zone.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rob.
Hugh, where did your interest in ancient Earth mysteries and civilizations come from?
It really came from the study of crop circles originally, because I got intrigued by them maybe 15 or 17 years ago, and started exploring the landscape in Wiltshire and around different parts of England. And within a couple of years, you start to realise that all these crop circles are actually where all the ancient sites are in England, at Avebury, Stonehenge, Silbury Hill, and all these quite well-known sites. And the more you look into it, the more I realised there was obviously a deep connection there, not just because of the crop circles, but because the ancients somehow had something to do with these crop circles. I'm not sure exactly how. This is one of the sort of questions we can get into later, but it was really the study of crop circles that drew me in and drew me into the landscape and made me really look at ley lines, earth strange energies, light phenomena, and just the mystery of how and why these megalithic temples were even constructed.
Tell me, Hugh, are crop circles appearing as frequently as they did in the 70s and the 80s? We don't hear very many reports about crop circles anymore. How come?
Oh, that's interesting, because in England, it's still happening here frequently. I mean, it usually starts around the end of April, early May, and finishes up when they harvest the fields in sort of sometime in September. But yeah, we still get hundreds of them, if not thousands of them every year or every few years. So they're certainly still happening here. A lot of the problems is that a lot of people just assume they're hoaxes or they're man-made, and I guarantee that definitely some of them are, but there's still some deep mystery there about why they're appearing, how they're appearing, and who, in fact, is creating them.
Do you think that there's an ET connection, an extraterrestrial connection when it comes to crop circles?
I think there is. I'm not sure if it's entirely that. I think there's a terrestrial connection as well, because you get these balls of light or these orbs or these strange light phenomena that occur, and a lot of people originally just believed they were UFOs or ET craft or whatever, but a lot of research has been done since then, over the last 20 years or so, and people are realizing that there seems to be an intelligence with these lights, but they seem to be almost like they come from the Earth, or there's something to do with the Earth. And so it's a really grey area, that one. I mean, when you start looking at the legends and the folklore of Britain and other places, you realise that they were talking about these strange light phenomena in the realm of fairies, will-o'-the-wisps, and different names that were given to them. And they were seen all over the landscape, specifically, where these ancient sites seem to be, and so where the crop circles also are.
All right, stand by, please, Hugh. You and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break for this hour. Exonation, Hugh Newman is our special guest, and we're talking about, you ready for this? A favorite topic of mine, Earth mysteries, megaliths. We're going to be talking about the pre-Mayan and Olmec civilizations and much more. His new book? No, wait a minute. We're going to be, his new book is entitled Earth Grids, The Secret Pattern of Gaia's Sacred Sites. And we'll be back in 2 minutes as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone TV show, coming soon to screens of all sizes. On the X Zone TV show, we'll investigate UFOs, ghosts, alien abductions, demonic possession, psychic phenomenon,
angels, lake monsters, Bigfoot, unsolved mysteries, and all subject matter from within the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, and much, much more. The X Zone TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, www.xzonetv.com, is a Relmar McConnell media company and Airplay Media production. Fartlets, fartlings, pongies, and honkers. They have so many names, makes you go bonkers. Rear tempest, butt bubbles, bottom burps, all aside. Why does it smell like a little rat died? Hail the fart, whenever, wherever, whoever. Its existence actually enriches our lives because it gives us those unforgettable moments that we can all recall again and again that are always good for yet another laugh. A new expose on farting. Get your copy of The Endearing Fart by Eileen Dover at www.theendearingfart.com.
Exonation, our guest this hour is Hugh Newman. His website is megalithomania.co.uk /HughNewman.html, and he is the author of The Secret Patterns of the Gaia's Secret Sites, and Gaia's Secret Sites, I'm sorry. And he's joining us all the way from the United Kingdom on Skype today. Why are so many people becoming obsessed with ancient megalithic sites, Hugh? I was wondering if you could shed some light onto that.
That's a good question. I mean, it's quite a mystery, that one. There seems to be a huge upsurge in interest in visiting many of the sites all around the planet. You can see this at Stonehenge on the summer solstice, for instance, where over the last 15 years or so, the numbers are increasing, the amount of people who go there. And now you get about 15,000 people turn up there just for one night, just to witness the sunrise at Stonehenge. You get the same thing happening, for example, at Chichen Itza in Mexico, the Mayan pyramid temple site. And again, on the spring equinox, we see the snake's pattern, or the serpent's sort of body, appear along the edge, along one of the corners of the pyramid. And suddenly, over the last 15 or 20 years, tens of thousands of people now turn up there to observe that. And it's getting to a point where the popularity of some of these sites, they're actually the most popular tourist attractions in each country. And so there seems to be I get a sense that there's something going on with people are really questioning who they are and where we come from and who our ancestors were. And I think one of the only clues we've got, in England and, possibly in America and other countries, is what they left behind. And some of the only things they left behind you can actually go and visit and interact with are these mysterious megalithic sites and pyramids.
So what makes these sacred sites so special? Is it earth energy? Are they sacred? Is it the landscape? Is it the ancestry? Or is it a combination of all, or a combination of any of those points?
I think it's a combination of all, but I think it's also because it's a mystery, because people don't know who built them.
Right.
They really, there's a real mystery there, and it's a little bit like the crop circles in a way, because people don't actually know who makes them, or why they're made, or what, the cause of them, and all this kind of stuff. And it's the same principles you get going back 5,000 years or beyond. And so I get a feeling the mystery pulls us in. But again, I think there's something about these sites. There's an energetic principle. They're like magnetic. They like attract us. And there's been, quite a lot of research has been done over the last few years, which has actually proved that, what geomancers and dowsers have been saying for decades, that these sites do have an energy. They are built on natural energy upwellings that come from the earth, and we can interact with that, and it actually has an effect on us. So I think there's a lot to these sites, and we're only just now coming round to understanding what these actually are.
What kind of effect do these sites have on people?
Well, I think one of the things people find is that they go into kind of either a trance state, or they feel kind of high energy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they kind of go into very, very drowsy or nauseous, and different effects. And this is reminiscent of the crop circles, but what some tests that have been done by several researchers, including Philip Callahan and the late John Burke, have found that when they've done scientific tests with sophisticated magnetometers and electric voltometers, they've actually found that there are energy present at these sites, and they can be recorded even with modern technology. And there's two sides to this, which is sort of been unlocked over the last few years. One of them is the fertility aspect that these energies are. They kind of have a fertility energy, that they naturally pull in the earth energies, the telluric currents and different types of earth energies from the earth, and different, and then at the same time. And so what they're finding is they find that when you actually place seeds at these sites at certain times of day, usually in the morning, it charges the seeds up. And when you go and plant them, they're much more healthy, and you get higher yield and things like that. So there's a whole fertility aspect. But the other side of the coin is that the same energy has an effect on our consciousness. And many of these sites are deemed as sacred because of that. So when you go into these sites, you actually can go into an altered state of consciousness, and the same fertility or telluric energies or whatever it is that's there, and which was harnessed by the builders of these sites, actually affects consciousness. And many of the Vision Quest sites in North America, for example, they found the precise spots where the initiate would go and have his initiation or be put out into the wilderness. Often it was right on the spot where strange paintings are, and also where this energy was at its highest. And so there's lots of different ways to look at this, and I think different cultures around the planet picked up on this partly because they were much more sensitive back then, because they didn't have TV and distractions like we have now. They were tuned in, and they really were able to meditatively sort of connect with these power spots. And so I think there's something we've lost, but we're actually starting to come back to now. And I think this is one of the reasons why many people are being drawn back to these sites.
I was watching, which one was it? One of the Tom Hanks movies, the first one, where he was in France. Oh my gosh, my mind went blank. Not Demons and Angels, the first one he did.
I can't think of that one myself.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
In there they talked about ley lines. Now, is there a connection between ley lines and sacred sites? And maybe you can describe to our listeners what a ley line is.
A ley line the term ley was originally coined by a guy called Alfred Watkins in England in the 1920s, where he was out walking and he had this visionary experience, where he realized that many of the sites he was walking about, like the ancient mounds, earthworks, stones, churches and other sites, all seemed to form into straight lines, and he realized this is possibly a network over the whole of Britain that connected these straight lines up. He originally thought they were like ancient pathways or tracks that were used for trading and other purposes, and it became very popular. There was called the Old Straight Track, the book that came out, and there was the Ley Hunters Club, and they used to all meet up and go exploring and trying to find leys on OS, Ordnance Survey maps. And so that was all it was originally. And then in the 60s and 70s, it became popular again due to the work of John Michel, who believed there was more to them than just straight line alignments. And actually they were to do with energies, and there was something going on, and they were almost like processional paths. Or even later, a guy called Paul Devereux believes they're spirit paths, or ghost roads, actually spirits, because they're supposed to move in straight lines. So there's lots of different things have now been put on top of the original ley, which is literally just a straight line of several sites over whatever distance. But there's many different aspects have been developed since then, the ones I've already mentioned. But then, for example, one interesting example, I think, which a lot of people in England know about, is the St. Michael line, which was discovered or rediscovered by John Michel in the late 1960s and documented in his book The View Over Atlantis. And he basically, all the way across southern England from Cornwall right up to the East Anglian coast, this straight line alignment he called the St Michael line, because many of the sites were St Michael sites, churches and things like this. But then about 15 or 20 years later after that, 2 dowsers or geomancers went out and actually seen if there was any energy present along this line. And what they found was, which absolutely blew me away when I read their book, they found that there was 2 weaving energy currents kind of moving around like a caduceus around the straight line alignment that John Michell had originally discovered. And so this whole other element of the study of earth mysteries and ancient sites came into play in the late 80s with Paul Broadhurst and Hamish Miller's book The Sun and the Serpent. And so there's lots of different kind of classifications. There's a lot of classifications with these lines now, and it gets quite confusing. So there's lots of things you have to kind of look at carefully to get the right sort of technique or classification.
By the way, the name of the movie was The Da Vinci Code.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
My gosh, how fast we forget, right? What are grid theories? Is it energy or a great survey done in antiquity?
Well, the Earth grid is it's a similar principle to the ley lines actually. There's several different perspectives to look at it from. But what happened was this ley line phenomena became quite popular in the 60s and 70s, and people thought, well, if these lines go over a few miles or even across the whole of southern Britain, perhaps they might go all the way around the world and actually create great circles or great Earth circles, and like sort of circles that go all the way around the planet and meet up again at that point where they kind of originate from. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what's even happened with the St Michael line. It's been discovered now that the straight line alignment goes all the way around the planet and goes through many different ancient sites, all in different continents and right through the oceans as well. And so people kind of put that into play and realized, well, maybe there's other ones. And so this whole idea of grid theories sort of came together. Some of the instigators were Ivan Sanderson. He came up with an interesting one back in the early 70s, actually, where he realized he was researching the Bermuda Triangle and other strange anomalies around the planet, and realized where most of these anomalies happened, they actually happen at certain points around the planet. And when he drew lines between them, he realized it formed a platonic solid called the icosahedron. And where these points were actually was like putting one of these platonic solids within the Earth. And the points where they touched the surface was where these strange phenomena would happen. And then this was developed by William Becker and Beth Hargens in the 80s and 90s. And they came up with the unified vector geometry grid, which sounds quite complicated, but it's actually quite simple. It's just a combination of all the different platonic solids. And they found when you join all these sites together, you realize they do form into these rather neat looking grids, almost as though the ancients were actually designing, around the whole planet. They were surveying around the planet when they built these sites to actually fall into these patterns, as though they were kind of following either they were following a formula they all knew about, or they were just following a natural formula that the Earth and we have built into us, to do with sacred geometry.
Something like the migration patterns of birds that get onto a magnetic heading and follow it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, this is a very similar principle. Yes.
All right, please stand by. Hugh, you and I have to take a commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Hugh Newman is our very special guest to this hour. Hugh organizes the Megalithomania conferences. It is coordinated. He's the coordinator of Talk Spaces at numerous UK festivals and hosts the Avalon Rising Earth Mystery Show on GlastonburyRadio.com. His most recent book, Earth Grids, The Secret Patterns of Gaia's Sacred Sites. And his website is megalithomania.co.uk/Hugh Newman.html. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break after the news from our studios here in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the Talkstar Radio Network. Don't go away. Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Hi, this is Eric Rawls of Cosmoverse.com, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X-Zone.
Hi, this is Blade Runner, and you are listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, I'm Laura Sabrin of Feast to Fields Organic Vineyard in Jordan, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, my name is Lady Ashley, the White Witch of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal talk radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound?
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network. 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Our guest this hour is Hugh Newman. His website is megalithomania.co.uk/Hugh Newman.html, and he's the author of Earth Grids, The Secret Patterns of Gaia's Sacred Sites. And once again, his website is megalithomania.co.uk/Hugh Newman.html. Hugh, did these sacred sites get passed down through different cultures?
It just seemed like that many of the sites around the world are very similar in design and construction technique. It really does seem like there was diffusionism in ancient times. This isn't really accepted by the academic world or historians, but the more you look into it, you realize that there was definitely travel going on in antiquity. You have the research of Thor Heyerdahl, for instance, who traveled across the Atlantic and the Pacific in very basic boats that were used by the different, various ancient cultures. And you do see the similarities so clearly when you start visiting these sites around the world. And to say that they weren't connected becomes quite absurd. when you start looking at it. And there's such a high technology you get at some of these sites that are still there. You can still see it today. That there must have been some sophisticated kind of network of people or teacher priests or whoever they were who were actually going around the world with this knowledge.
But how would they get around the world at that early time in our history?
Well, I think they must have been using boats. For example, just outside the Great Pyramid in Egypt, we see some very fine examples of some cedarwood boats that could have easily traversed the oceans, no problem at all. And they clearly, and they buried them. They buried these boats. They kind of deconstructed them and buried them in the ground around the pyramid and covered them up like they were graves. And so they were there to be discovered. So that it's just saying, yeah, look, this is what we were doing. Hello, to people in the future. So
sure.
I really do believe that. And then you get lots of legends and stories of, like in Mexico, of Quetzalcoatl, in South America, of Viracocha and others, who they appeared upon rafts and boats when they arrived and started teaching the arts of civilization to the natives. And so there's even the legends are saying it as well. And obviously you get the Noah's Ark thing as well, so it does go back into prehistory that there was certainly, travel around the planet.
So do you think Christopher Columbus should be given the credit for discovering the Americas and, providing the proof that the Earth was round?
No, not really. No, I mean, that's a bit slightly wrong, I think, because you start looking at all the ancient maps, for instance.
Right.
One of them, the famous one, is the Pires Rez map from a Turkish admiral from the 1500s, who pieced together lots of different more ancient maps in Alexandria from the Great Library there, and actually pieced together this one and some of the maps were so old that they even showed Antarctica before it was free of ice, which must have been at least, between 6,000 and 10,000 years old. So, and they were mapped really well, that all the coastlines, the terrain, and this, that, and the other. So, you really have to question the idea that Columbus was the first discoverer of the Americas, and the fact that there wasn't travel around the world in antiquity, because there's so much evidence to say there was.
Many sites, sacred sites, are similar, very similar around the world. Why is that?
This is something that's intrigued me since I started getting into this subject. It's something we cover at length at our Megalithomania conferences. We really we invite speakers to come and discuss this particular question, because when you start, obviously there's the pyramids. You get similar styles. From Egypt to Mexico to South America to China, even into like European countries such now there's been discoveries in Bosnia and Tenerife, Mauritius, even Sicily as well. And so that's just one example. Another example, which fascinates me further, is the dolmens, or the table stones, where there's several upright stones, quite very large ones, megalithic, and then there's one on top. So it sort of looks like a kind of almost like it's a table as such. And that's why that's the sort of name for dolmens. And they're everywhere. I mean, they're literally almost every country in the world has these dolmens. Even in North America. I mean, there's some examples up in North Salem in New York State and Connecticut and New Jersey, for instance. There's other ones in South America that have been discovered. You get them in Italy, all over Europe, even in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, going all the way into Jordan, up through the Middle East, even in China, Japan, Korea, almost every country on the planet has these dolmens. And so that fascinates me in itself, because it's another suggestion that these were potential marker points when they were mapping the planet. And also that it proves that this technology was either being passed around by the same people, or it was being taught to other groups as these teachers or whoever they were traveled. And again, you get the same thing with stone circles as well. For example, I mean, England's the hub of stone circles in the world, really. But for example, the largest stone circle in the world is in Morocco. And no one's ever heard of this one, and it's almost impossible to get to. It was actually Robert Temple, who's actually speaking at our Megalithomania conference in May, who actually rediscovered that and put that back on the map. And then you get these trilithons, like these upright stones, which you get at Stonehenge, for instance. There's similar examples of those in Tripoli, in North Africa, in Libya, and you get the same thing all over the planet yet again. So there's like this prehistoric, advanced civilization that travelled the world in antiquity. They mapped the planet. They were sophisticated. They were master builders. And they were obviously, the legends state that they were teachers, and they were really nice people, and they were doing good for the planet, and they were going around teaching the higher arts and sciences. And I think this is a really good kind of paradigm that we need to kind of look back on and actually think, well, actually, let's get back into that kind of living rather than the sort of chaotic world that we live in now.
Tell me, what do you think happened with all the knowledge that has been lost from the ancients?
That's a good question. There's a lot that has been. I mean, obviously we get the great fires and destruction of the libraries of Alexandria and other such, and all the Maya codexes, the sort of the Christian Spanish burning of all them over there. And yet it is a pity that has all been lost. And I think we've lost connection to a whole era of who we were, possibly going back tens of thousands of years. But obviously there's this whole story about the Hall of Records in Egypt, possibly in the Central America as well. That's a lot of this information is still within that. And again, I think this is why a lot of people, myself included, who actually have a calling for that, wanted to know who we are, where we came from. I don't believe, and many others don't believe, that we're being told the truth, really. And I think, and so we have a calling to know who we were. And these records that have been destroyed have kind of forced us to, the only thing left from that era is these megalithic sites and these pyramids. So potentially that's why we're all visiting them and trying to work out what's going on and, and trying to work out who our ancestors were. And the only clues left really are many of these sites that still exist on the planet today.
Hugh, what has been the most significant find at an ancient site that we can actually use in today's society?
Well, there's been lots of. I mean, if you look at the. I think a classic example is the pyramid. It's just the construction techniques and designs of some of these sites, because there's not artifacts are kind of low. There's not many artifacts that have really been discovered, and if they have, they're usually in private collections or in the basement of museums or the Smithsonian or vaults or wherever. And so there's not many left as such. I mean, some good examples, obviously the crystal skulls, which are still, there's a great mystery still that surrounds those, whether they were actually made in the 19th century or not. But when you look at the actual construction techniques of some of these sites, that's where the clues are, and that's where the clues are of where the technology was. Christopher Dunn has done some fascinating work in Egypt, for instance. Especially the way they used to cut granite and diorite, these hardest stones on the planet pretty much. And they just sort of cut them, carved them and shaped them like they were putty. They were soft, really soft, and they were like molding it. But somehow, when you start delving into that side of things from a technological perspective, all the sort of answers start coming out. And this is something that I must credit Chris Dunn for. He's done some superb research on this. And actually found many of the potential techniques that they were using. I mean, it suggests as well, from what he's discovered, that they were certainly using the earth energies to somehow power their sort of machine tooling or their drills or whatever they were using. And this is something that comes back to this whole idea of earth energies, that why were they harnessing the earth energies at these sites? Well, part of the reason, thanks to Christopher Dunn, could have been, thanks to his discoveries, could have been that they were actually using it to actually power things like the same way that we use electricity today. So I think this is all starting to be uncovered again now.
Do you think that there's, I know a lot of people who do research into the pyramids, whether they're in Egypt or whether they're anywhere else, including Mexico. They believe that there's an extraterrestrial connection, that this has got something to do with ETs and ETs' return. For example, the end of the Mayan calendar, December 21st, 2012. There are many people that I've talked to over the years who believe that this is the day that either the aliens are going to land, the world is going to be destroyed, or it's going to be the second coming of Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of good, interesting theories about that for sure. I mean, there's two people I've been reading up on for the last few years. There's a guy called Mark Healy, and Jeff Stray, who've done they're the two of the best researchers I found on the whole 2012 subject. And one of the things that interests me, I mean, this is with the end date in 2012, December the 21st, 2012, not only is it on the winter solstice, it's also where galactic alignment happens, according to the John Major Jenkins theory. So this fascinates me, but it's the start date that interests me, because they kind of they're sort of following all these really intricate cycles of different planets, even galactic galactic cycles as well. And for some reason, they started it in 3114 BC. And technically, there's no one supposed to be around in Central America to start that calendar then. Just natives, jungle dwellers or whoever was there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was something else going on, because the legends state that these sort of gods appeared, Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha in South America, etc., and actually taught the arts of the calendars, taught the megalithic construction, taught agriculture and living in harmony and civilization. And so maybe they were the ones who began this calendar. But we have to ask, why did they start it then, and why does it end then? And this is where we start. This is where the debate begins, really. But there's evidence now that it was started in Central America, and the Olmecs, who were later than Quetzalcoatl, actually developed it and actually were able to date it back. And they came up with the end date in 2012. One theory, which I'm sure you've been on your show before, is that there was a cataclysm back just before 3114 BC. And there's now evidence that in Austria there was a cometary hit that took place about 3050 BC. And it caused it shifted the crust slightly, and caused massive kind of chaos across the planet, even quite dark skies for a long time as well. And apparently one idea is that they actually had to calibrate resurvey the planet after then, and then suddenly there's this megalithic and pyramid explosion happening around the planet. Everywhere was building all these sites, and there was this whole diffusionism going on then. So potentially, they could have gone into this whole idea of right, we have to create calendars, we have to create something, we have to know when it's going to happen again, so we can protect our future generations. And potentially, this is where the whole 2012 thing may fit in. I don't want to kind of freak out your listeners or anything, but that is one interesting theory, and I think it needs to be looked at seriously as a possibility. The other side of the coin is that it's to do with consciousness expansion, and actually they were tracking cycles of consciousness of humans on the planet. And we were at a golden age back in 3114 BC, and we're approaching this golden age now, post 2012. And so, as you're probably aware, and your listeners are aware, there's lots of different theories, but I don't think they're all about devastation.
In 1 minute or less, tell me what you believe Hugh Newman believes will happen on December the 21st, 2012.
That's the $1 million question, that one, isn't it? Well, I'm going to be partying probably in Central America. There's a huge event taking place there, which I'm going to get involved in at Teotihuacan and other places. But I get a sense that one of the things, the one way I like to approach this, and many of my colleagues and friends are approaching it in the same way, is that we've been through this whole idea of the devastation thing. We've kind of come out the other side of it thinking, actually, there's something else going on here. And it's to do with creating the reality we want to happen in 2012. And actually to do with, let's use this as an opportunity rather than let the prophecies control us. Because prophecies are malleable. They can be changed and created by us, because we are the ones who created the prophecies anyway, just our ancestors. And so there's a lot to be said for that, I think. And there's one project called Peace 2012, which is well worth, checking out on the internet. That's run by Mark Healy and a few other people, the Earth Dance Collective. And they're really focused on creating a very positive intention. And all the events that are taking place that day all kind of connect up and do this global meditation.
Well, to say this is going to be an interesting day is certainly understating its importance, but we'll be here, Exo Nation, live as we see what happens through the entire day of 2012. In fact, we're going to be broadcasting 24 hours straight from midnight right through to the following midnight during 2012, December 21st, 2012. My name's Rob McConnell. Our guest, Hugh Newman, and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on the Talkstar Radio Network. Don't go away. What if someone told you you could live to be 120? Would you believe him? What if he told you the Bible guaranteed it? All you needed to do was follow his rules and buy his products. Would you do it? What if you invested 20 years of your life in him? What if he tested his substances on your child? What if your child became brain damaged as a result? Meet Dr. Tyler Belknap, a fast-talking Texas admin turned health guru. At the helm of a vast health food and supplement empire, he has established himself as the authority on nutrition and longevity. But what his followers don't know is that his products are laced with bizarre psychoactive substances from genetically modified plants developed in his very own secret lab. No wonder his customers can't stop using them. Tyler Belknap will stop at nothing to keep his edge in the market, even if it means experimenting on children. Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity, a novel from the pen of political cartoonist Monty Wolverton, is an easy and entertaining read full of rich characters and intrigue. It hits home in a world filled with all kind of hucksterism and offers a glimpse of what can happen when GMO technology falls into the wrong hands. Chasing 120 by Monty Wolverton. Get your copy today at www.ptm.org/120 or on Amazon.com.
When demystified, shamanism is an ancient science delving into the quantum level of life. Understanding and implementing basic shamanic principles can empower the individual to heal, manifest, and evolve in these rapidly changing times. Path Home Shamanic Art School is a one-of-a-kind Colorado State certified occupational school training and certifying shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also train individuals simply interested in empowering and enriching their lives through shamanism. Path Home's certification classes are in a week-long block format, enabling national and international students to participate. We also provide online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions as well. Discover all you can be. Enter the limitless world of shamanism today. For more information, visit findyourpathhome.com or call 303-775-3431.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a
Exonation Hugh Newman is my guest this hour. megalithomania.co.uk/Hugh Newman.html, and that's HUGHNEWMAN.html. First of all, Hugh, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your book, your conference, your radio show, and for getting the knowledge, the lost knowledge, out to the people around the world so that we can learn from the past to make a better future. So thanks a lot for all you do.
Yeah, I really appreciate coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure, yeah.
I'd like to finish off where we started talking about crop circles. And, you know, you research crop circles that always seem to appear near ancient sites. Do crop circles, in your opinion, also hold the key to this knowledge?
I think there's something about the crop circles that is often overlooked, because most people just assume they're man-made or they're hoaxes or they're jokes or whatever. But when you actually start studying them, and you start noticing the geometry, you notice the placement in the landscape, the distribution of them, how they relate, where they are in relation to sites, how they often seem to fall on ley lines or earth energy currents. There's something going on with them, which I think they're designed, I think, to sort of stimulate something in us. And this is exactly, and I'm a prime example of this. It's exactly what they did to me. They drew me into this whole world of the ancient sacred landscape. And this is how I got into this studying this. It drew me into the whole subject of sacred geometry. Mm-hmm. It drew me into the subject of earth energies and studying different subtle forces that the ancients may have worked with. And there's many other sort of subjects it's pulled me into. And I think this is what happens with people. They start questioning things. And I think this is one of the keys to their purpose. And so whether they're created by us, whether if they're made by people, then, big respect to the people who make them, because they're extremely hard to make. They're incredibly difficult. But we have to admit, and we have to acknowledge that some of them are not made by humans. There's been film footage I've personally seen on several different occasions of crop circles actually being formed by what looks like these small balls of light that have an intelligence behind them. And whether they're ETs or whether they're some terrestrial intelligence, we just don't know. And I think this is one of the keys to this mystery, is that a good mystery will stay one step ahead of you. And I think this is what the crop circles are certainly doing.
Once again, Hugh, thank you very much for joining us. Tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and also where they can get your book.
They can check out the website you mentioned, megalithomania.co.uk/HughNewman.html. If they want to come and see me, we do our annual Megalithomania conference in Glastonbury every May, 14th to 15th of May this year. And if people can't come, they can watch it on the live stream we've got set up, and they can catch up with much of my research through the megalithomania.co.uk website. We're going to be coming to America later in the year. We're doing a couple of conferences over there. More details of that will be coming soon on the website, and we're going to be sort of touring around with some of these speakers, checking out some of the megalithic sites in New England, but also around the whole mound culture sites along the Mississippi. We're sort of working with William Henry.
So we've got a lot to look forward to from you over in the UK as well as here in North America. Hugh, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success. And I can't wait until the next time you join me back here in the X Zone to talk about the fascinating Earth, our history, our cultures, and much more. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.